So, hi Rebecca.
Oh, hi,
How
Martin.
are you?
Yeah, really well. Lovely to be here with you.
Good. So, just as a brief intro to our audience, hello to all. My name is Martin Pattinson. I run Focus 5, a small advisory business helping local SMEs in the home counties provide advice to overcome their challenges and hopefully achieve or exceed their ambitions. And I met you, Rebecca, I think a year or so ago. And I was struggling a little bit on some of the essential services that I needed to have to support my business. So we got chatting, and I'm glad to say I became a client. It's been a great relationship, really helpful to me. But in talking to you more recently, we thought it would be helpful to your audience if we just perhaps got to hear a little bit more about you, what makes you tick, how you came about GetAhead VA, how that was formed. So you agreed to this short introduction, short session. So just like to hear a bit more from you.
Oh, thank you, Martin. Yeah, great to be here. And thank you for encouraging us to do this. Because like you say, you often sort of see snippets of people online and never quite understand sort of the backstory.
Yeah.
So without boring everyone, yeah, I'm Rebecca Newenham. I set GetAhead up back in 2010. So we've just celebrated our 10th birthday.
Oh, yes.
And thank you. Yeah, quite a milestone, actually. Yeah, and I've been feeling the love, certainly in the last few weeks, for all that, which is lovely.
Yeah.
So I was a retail buyer in a previous pre-mummy life. I did a business studies degree, loved the retail buying side of what I did, loved the branding. Then had a career break for 8 years when I had my 3 girls and did various bits and pieces during that time. But I always felt there was more in me rather than necessarily going back into the corporate environment. And I wanted, my parents had run a tutorial agency when I was growing up, and my mum did a lot of flexible work around my brother and I growing up. My father was a head teacher. He was very core hours. So she was always an inspiration to me in the sense that she was running something for herself that she found interesting, but that she could fit in around us. So she was always been, we've always talked about, what I could do. And she always said to me, "You'll find your thing." And I said, "Oh, really?" And I love retail buying. That was my thing pre-kids. But what I've now subsequently realised is there are different careers that you can have throughout your life that suit you at different stages. I think you'd agree with that, wouldn't you? Yeah. And that feeling of actually what was my passion then, and it was for me to have something for myself that was flexible, but without sounding rude in any way, I didn't want to sacrifice that type of work. So I didn't particularly want to, for example, be a TA at school or work locally just because that meant that I had time on my hands to fit around my children. So I wanted something that I could feel really proud of. And I know probably people would relate to this, that sort of classic thing when you go to a dinner party and someone says, "Well, what do you do?" That awful question.
Yeah.
Sometimes you can feel a bit awkward about, well, actually, I only do this. So I wanted something where I could look someone in the eye and say, "This is what I'm doing. It's flexible, but it gives me a sense of purpose." So I did quite a lot of research into what I could do. And I also knew I didn't want to do it on my own. So I wanted something that could give me everything I needed, but that would give me also that sense of being sociable, understanding, working with other people. So virtual assistants were very strong in the States. They're probably 10 years ahead of us. So I saw that as an opportunity, but knowing that I didn't want to just do it on my own. I didn't want to do just the client work myself. I wanted to enable other people to have some flexibility.
Yeah.
And I remember looking around the playground thinking, there's such a wealth of experience and talent here.
Yeah, exactly.
So that was quite an sort of insight for me. So set the business up. And I think, again, you would agree, Martin, isn't it? When you're thinking about a brand name for your business, that's quite a challenge because it's got to be relatable. And a lot of people will make it around their own business name. And I didn't really want to do that because I had a vision of actually growing something bigger than just me.
Yeah. No, I think it's a great brand name. I mean, it's pretty clear what you do, actually. So I think it's very successful. And what about, so when you started, I mean, there was clearly day one of your business.
Yeah.
You were on your own, presumably.
Yes.
And how did you grow from that point?
Yeah, I was always quite good at telling everyone what I was doing. And I think that, so I would say that to anyone as well, setting up. It's about being vocal and telling. And when I launch new franchisees now, I say, you go to the opening of a crisp packet. You have to be there and engaging and telling people what you're doing. So I was very vocal. And actually, one of my mummy friends introduced me to my first 2 clients because she quickly got what I was looking for.
Yeah.
She interpreted that, and then she very kindly said, "Look, I know a couple of people that are wanting help," and one of them was an all-women networking group. So Sarah ran a group and a business that she was scaling. So I was her admin support, and then within a year, very quickly went on to launch a local group for her in Guildford, where I'm based.
Yeah.
Which was quite the sort of the stepping stone for me to really hone in on the value of networking and getting messaging across and sort of meeting other like-minded business owners.
Yeah. So when did you make your first hire then? Was it quite quickly after?
Yes, so within about 3 months, I realised, oh, that's not my skill set that a client wants. I don't want to have to do that. So yeah, that's a good point. It was sort of very quickly identifying the demand in the marketplace for what we offered, and we started out as GetAhead, your virtual assistant, and I was offering admin experience. And then I remember a client wanted some Excel spreadsheet work, and that really isn't my forte. So then it was about going to my network and saying, does anyone know someone that's got that? And this amazing girl Desiree came on the scene, and I quickly started giving her work that I didn't want to be doing.
So would it be fair to say you had the vision that you were going to be, I mean, I've got one of your leaflets here, which you gave me some time ago, which I just pulled out just before this meeting actually, and it reminded me of how many services you do actually offer. It's quite extensive. So from day one, did you have this vision that you were going to offer this broad breadth of experience of services?
Yes,
I sort of morph into this.
Yeah, I had a 5-year plan. I remember thinking, well, I want to provide services that will help business owners. So I almost used that first year to trial and just get a sense of what the demand was. So very quickly saw it was more than just diary management. And then as we started growing, I noticed that business owners were saying to me, oh, I've got my PC isn't working. Do you know someone that you could link me with? And I am a natural connector anyway. So I then suddenly started thinking, actually, this would give us the ability to offer different services that a business owner wants, and they only have to come to one place to get them.
I had an image there of you going around with a toolkit fixing it.
I know someone that can, Martin.
Yeah, exactly. That's always the way, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
So you have, obviously you've got the franchise model as well. So how many franchises have you now got? Because I know from reading your posts that you've actually grown quite rapidly, it seems to me, in the last few months. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, no, it is. Yeah, and that's been amazing. Actually, we're recording this in October of 2020. Lockdown happened. I remember my coach saying, "You're going to be fine. This is a great opportunity for you to grow the franchise." And I remember saying, "I'm not sure because I have to meet potential franchisees." But weirdly, I've secured 5 in lockdown. Wow. And I only met 1 before their induction. The rest I hadn't met. So, I was opening my front door, hoping that they looked like they did on the screen. But that's been an amazing accelerator, actually, lockdown. And the franchise bit came out of me having a 5-year plan that I wanted to scale. And then realizing that although we've always had clients around the UK, people like to see you on more of a regular basis, and that consistency and buying into you has to come from those different touch points. So we trialed it in Bristol probably 5 or 6 years ago. And as a result of that, started building and realizing that actually franchising and that model was the perfect solution. And it's interesting about franchising, isn't it, Martin? Because I think sometimes people can possibly have a negative feeling about it.
Yeah, definitely. I've been to a couple of franchise shows, actually, and I've been quite surprised at how many sort of high street names.
I know,
just franchises, and it just amazed me, actually. Do you go to the franchise shows at all?
Yes, I certainly went to one in Birmingham when we were first starting out. And like you, I was surprised. You've got sort of the Greggs, the Squires Coffee, various ones. And it made me realise, actually, it's all around giving people the same experience wherever they go.
Yeah.
So that's sort of that important bit about having that standardised toolkit and making sure that every experience someone has with one of my GetAhead team, it's the same. So it looks and feels the same.
So how many franchises have you got now?
So I've got 9. I've got 10 franchisees because 1 is operating as a partnership.
Right.
I've got 9. And interestingly, again, my coach was saying, how many do you want? How many more do you want? And I said, actually, it's never been a numbers game for me. It's all about finding the right personality and people that fit with our sort of goals and our values as a business.
And presumably patches that don't overlap too much with other franchises.
No, exactly. So we use a really sophisticated mapping system.
Yeah.
And I was speaking to a prospect just earlier today, and I was saying to Hona, we build it around where the franchisee lives, and therefore where they can easily access. But obviously with lockdown and with so much more remote networking now, it doesn't really matter in quite the same way. But we overlay the SME data so we can see very, very clearly where our target market are hanging out. Therefore, where, and you're right, we have to be very mindful of patches that don't overlap with other people and leaving little sort of alleyways of people that, where if we've got one franchise here and one there, they need to be butting up against each other. And working really nicely. That sort of the regional territories building closer together is lovely, because then the franchisees feel very supported regionally as well as nationally then.
So just thinking about a typical client who may be prospective client, I should say, who's perhaps considering retaining your services, what does your typical client look like?
So generally it's the business owner. So very much like you, Martin, you know, it's the person in charge who has a vision of what they want. And often they will have started out and then suddenly look back a year later and think, well, why am I doing absolutely everything? You know, this isn't my level of expertise, but also they can sometimes lose connection with why they set the business up in the first place, because they're suddenly having to do their finances, having to do their admin, all the things that perhaps they haven't had to do in the past, but to start the business, they needed to feel that they had control over things. So we often find that's an element, you know, a year in, suddenly, oh, there goes my phone. I don't think I've got my telephone answering on at the moment, so I'm just going to...
Well, let's play au naturel. And just
I know. I'll get my assistant to answer that. No one rings
your assistant.
No one normally rings the vintage landline, do they? So prospect clients are generally overwhelmed by how much they've got to do, or if I look at lockdown, they may well have lost a member of their team that was vital to, you know, redundancy or whatever it is, and they've suddenly realised actually they need to bring in particular skill sets, but maybe don't want that feeling of having to have somebody employed that then has all the elements of cost associated with that.
You're anticipating my questions.
I was going to say, if I look at, I've got an ideal client, John, who is a global speaker. He's a financial consultant, and before lockdown was, you know, all around the world talking. So we would do his expenses, we've done his logo, we've done his website, we've proofread 3 of his books for him. You know, he knows that he'll come to me and I will always find the right member of the team to do whatever support he needs. He could easily afford to employ every role that we support him with, but he gets the value of actually working flexibly like that.
Definitely.
Which is an interesting one, and I love it because we can always help him, and he's always got different ideas and different things he needs help with, which is really lovely for us as a, you know, the client relationship.
So perhaps just again, for the benefit of your audience, give a brief overview of the range of services that you offer. I mean, I've got it on this card here. But
good point. So we're business services and marketing is our sort of separation. So anything from telephone answering, and that's a great point for anyone perhaps starting out in business or suddenly realizing they don't want to have to be rummaging around in their bag answering a mobile phone. And from a perception point of view, we can issue a landline number and we can answer all their phone calls. A dedicated virtual assistant that can do anything from admin, diary management, PowerPoint. We charge the minute, so there's no sense of you have to commit to hundreds of hours, but they're a great person that will slot in and give you the support when you need it. And then a lot of marketing, so marketing strategy, breaking that down into social media marketing, blogging, anything to sort of bring your brand alive, as well as design. So we do a lot of work on helping people refine their logo, what their sort of brand values are, and then how that is consistently played out across their website and any brand materials that they do. And another big thing which has really come about with lockdown is Zoom support. So, you know, we're recording this on Zoom today. I run my LinkedIn local in Guildford, that networking group, once a month. I have one of my team that manages all the tech behind that. So I can naturally be hosting it, and Jenny will put everyone into breakout rooms and manage that. So we've had 3 inquiries this week alone from companies that want that level of support, which I'm finding quite interesting. Because if you're running a conference, so we've supported a client at a conference, she should have been doing it in Europe over 4 days, instead had to put it all online, and that happened really, really quickly.
Yeah.
And then we managed the tech around that. So we were managing WhatsApp groups for her and also managing the breakout rooms and things throughout the day. So the key speakers could just concentrate on delivering the content, knowing that all the tech and everything behind it was being operated that way. So they're big things we're pushing, and also support for tradespeople.
Yeah.
So on my team, you know, her husband's an electrician. He's manic. He has got, you know, so many different things going on. He needs to have consistency in someone taking his phone calls, doing the admin. So we're really doing a push for trades at the moment as well, of how we can help. And it doesn't break the bank either. And I think that's often a misconception, isn't it? You know, you're outsourcing. Oh, how much is that going to cost? When actually you've got real control. And I know you value that, don't you? Knowing that you've got a budget each month to spend on support.
And I know how many hours a month that buys of the support that I get. And, you know, for my purpose, that's great. And the benefits I see are, obviously, you're not employing people, which is, you know, tragic, but you're reducing your fixed costs. You've got flexible costs. You can, like your colleague John, you were just saying, your client John, you can sort of employ the different skill sets that you offer as you need them. That's a real benefit. Is there any other sort of benefits that potential clients could obtain?
I think we always match on personality as well as skill set as well. So it's not like the one person fits the brief. And I think clients like that. So we had a new client at the start of lockdown, and I actually provided a couple of options for them. So they felt they had some control over the person they were working with. Yeah. You know, and anything can happen, can't it? So I think that the fact that we've got a team of over 40 that we can slot in means that, you know, people will get covered for holiday and illness and anything like that. So there's always a seamless sense of support, and the team know each other very well. So you may well be working with a VA and suddenly have a slightly different requirement. We can be guaranteed we will always be able to fulfill that requirement because we can bring the right person in from the team, which is helpful.
So you have 40 people, and is this just in the network that I'm involved in?
So this is sort of UK-wide.
UK-wide.
So there's the dog barking. UK-wide. So we always. I know that's natural. Nothing fake here. So that we can always find right people, and people love being part of our team. So again, if anyone's watching this and thinking, actually, I'd really like to have an opportunity to do some virtual support, we're always looking for new talent to add to the team as well, which is great.
Okay. Well, that's another positive that I hadn't anticipated. So I guess, you know, one of the things that really drives me in my business and working with clients is understanding the marketplace, which you clearly do, and you know, who are your competitors? Do you have competitors, and do you know?
Yes. No, absolutely. We have competitors in the sense that there are lots of virtual assistants now, which is great for us because there clearly is the demand, and I've seen a real influx of VAs since lockdown as well. And I think it's about, if you're looking at working remotely, it's about working out how someone operates, how they track their time, but also their personality. So it's sort of fitting in with them. And I think we often say to clients as well, when you start working with someone, start tracking the activities that you're doing in a week and then question whether that's the best use of your time or not. And it's often surprising, actually, if you were to be really brutally honest. I know I need to be a bit more that myself sometimes, is to look at where you spend time. You know, how reactive are you? How good are you at actually just focusing and being able to outsource certain elements of things that you probably didn't realize are as time consuming as they are for you? It takes you away from delivering your client work or whatever else you want to be doing.
But is there a competitor that offers the breadth of services that you offer? Have you come across?
No, generally they either are admin or marketing. I think we're unusual in the fact that we cover both aspects.
I thought so.
Yeah, so that, and I always cringe at, you know, the one-stop shop terminology, but we are that really, because I can always find someone within that level of support, which is great. Yeah.
And you just mentioned lockdown and the opportunities it's offered to your business. Do you feel lockdown has been a catalyst for your business?
I really do. Like I said at the beginning, I thought, well, how's it going to play out? But then suddenly, you know, I spoke on a couple of local radio stations at the very beginning because they were asking for tips on how to work remotely. And I suddenly realised, actually, you know, we've all been doing that for the last 10 years. We are actually experts at doing things like this. So now we don't have that hard sell to potential clients that I might have had in the past.
Yes.
I remember at a couple of exhibitions, people sort of saying, oh, I've got no idea how can I trust that you're going to do the work if you're not sitting in my office? And of course, we don't get that at all now, because everyone knows that it's actually harder than it looks working from home and being remote, and actually the levels of communication that are needed. So they then trust that the fact we've been doing it for so long, we clearly know what we're doing and we've got the right ways of doing things.
Yeah. So my last point is one about sort of crystal ball gazing and trying to anticipate
Yes.
future. And you have a plan. You had a 5-year plan. Presumably that's reviewed fairly frequently. But I guess with the lockdown and the scenario we're facing, and who knows when that will end, you've had to adapt your plan.
Mm-hmm.
And where do you see in 10 years' time your business going? Or
yeah, good question.
That's far ahead?
Yeah, my crystal ball. I think for me, it's going to be around expanding the franchise provision. So as I said at the beginning, you know, looking at 1 a quarter, 2 a quarter around the UK. So I would love within the next 5 years to have had substantially more growth in that, so that we're offering that level and the brand has grown within that. And maybe we do offer alternative services as well. It'll be interesting to see what's actually required. But I think things like the Zoom support, things like that are going to become even more necessary.
Yeah.
I would love to grow the offices and find the right people to be delivering that, which would be really exciting.
So how many, you know, begs the question, how many franchises do you think the UK needs?
Oh, that's an interesting point, because I remember when I first set the franchise up 3 years ago, I was offered the opportunity to divide the UK into all the different regions, but I've chosen to do it on a more bespoke level. So I think, you know, another 20, it's sort of hard to tell, but what I'm finding interesting is looking at the regional differences as well, and we can't have a blanket assumption over what, you know, each region seems to need different things. So that's an exciting challenge to have. Yeah.
Would you consider going global?
Well, I've been approached by somebody in Australia and America, and I think at the moment the was just really gain traction in the UK. So yeah, no, definitely would look at that. And I'm really enjoying the mentoring side. So I spoke to somebody today who's thinking about franchising their business. They're in a totally different industry. Okay. So I would love to consider how I can support people in that kind of mentoring role as well. So who knows? So
That's amazing.
We'll have to meet up again in 5 years' time, Martin, and have a reflection.
Definitely. Well, I think that's a good point at which to perhaps complete our discussion. It's been really interesting, Rebecca. Do you want to make any additional points?
No, nothing at all. No, I've loved it. Thank you so much for the opportunity.
That's brilliant. Well, I've really enjoyed it, and hopefully the audience has too. So found it very helpful. And good luck to you, Rebecca.
Oh,
Speak to you soon.
Thank you.